The Superstition Wilderness covers 160,200 acres of Arizona desert, roughly 40 miles east of Phoenix. Most people see it from a car window on the way somewhere else. A flat-top mountain, some saguaro, a scenic pullout. What they do not see is that more than 30 people have died in there hunting a gold mine that has never been found. A town of 6 people whose only restaurant has walls papered in signed dollar bills. A church built as a movie prop that survived 2 fires and now holds weddings with a statue of Elvis on the altar. A rock spire where 2 rival camps shot at each other over a shadow. Stick with us to the end, because number 1 is a hotel bellhop from Denver who read over 100 books about this range, saved 2 years of vacation time, walked in, and was not found for 3 years, half a mile from his own tent. If you like these deep dives into forgotten places, hit subscribe because we post one every week. Today we are counting down 10 places in the Superstition Mountains and the deadly secret still buried in them. Number 10. Tortilla Flat. The town with 6 people and a wall made of money. 6 people live there. That is the entire permanent population, and it has been under 100 at every point since the place began. Tortilla Flat sits at 1,750 feet on the floor of a narrow desert canyon at the eastern end of Canyon Lake, walled in by red-brown volcanic cliffs. You get there by climbing State Route 88 out of Apache Junction on a paved road of blind curves and unguarded drops. It exists because of water, not gold. In the early 1900s, crews began building Theodore Roosevelt Dam, and they needed a freight road through the Superstitions. Tortilla Flat became a stagecoach and supply stop on that road in 1904. When the dam was finished, the freight traffic stopped, but the stop never quite died. It just shrank. It is now the last surviving stagecoach stop on the Apache Trail. It has also been flattened repeatedly. A flood in 1942 damaged it badly and drove most of the remaining residents out. A fire later destroyed the store, the restaurant, and the motel, and most of what stands today was rebuilt in the late 1980s. The mercantile went up in 2009. Every time, a handful of owners chose to rebuild on the same ground rather than let it go. The saloon uses real saddles as bar stools. The walls are covered in signed dollar bills left by visitors from all over the world, and they now function as the building's actual wallpaper. The site was originally a camping ground for prospectors hunting the lost Dutchman's mine. Today there is a restaurant, a country store, a gift shop, an ice cream shop, and a small museum and a red schoolhouse. Several wilderness trailheads start nearby. The entire population of the town could sit in one booth of its own restaurant. Between the motorcycle waves, that is more or less what it feels like. Number 9. Goldfield. The town that died. 3 times. In 1893, a flash flood tore through Goldfield Canyon and stripped the soil off a layer of bedrock laced with gold. Within months, a town of 1,500 people stood where there had been nothing. Goldfield sits on a low hill on open desert flats between the Superstition and Goldfield Mountains, about 4 miles northeast of Apache Junction, with the flat-top bulk of Superstition Mountain filling the horizon behind it. Low-grade ore had already been found there in 1892. The first post office opened on the 7th of October, 1893. At its height, the town had 3 saloons, a boarding house, a general store, a brewery, a blacksmith, a butcher shop, and a school. Then the vein faulted. The ore body physically shifted, the grade collapsed, and the town emptied about as fast as it had filled. The post office closed on the 2nd of November, 1898. That should have been the end of it. It was not. George U. Young, an acting territorial governor of Arizona, bought the mines, brought in modern equipment, and revived the place, then renamed it after himself. Youngsburg. The second boom failed too, and by around 1926, it was finished again. What stands there now is not the original town. Robert and Lou Ann Scoos began rebuilding the site as an attraction in the 1960s and 70s, laying it out on the same street plan and partly on the original foundations. There is an underground tour of the Mammoth Mine, a museum, Arizona's only operating narrow-gauge railroad, and gunfight reenactments on the hour. Original foundations, scattered equipment, and the Pioneer Cemetery are still there. Parking and walking the streets is free. And some researchers argue the Mammoth Mine, the thing that started all of this, is itself the lost Dutchman's mine. An acting governor of Arizona bought a dead town and put his own name on it. It died again inside 5 years, and the name did not survive either. Number 8. The Superstition Mountain Lost Dutchman Museum. The church that wouldn't burn. You can get married in this church. There is a statue of Elvis on the altar. If you would rather not have him there, the staff will take him out and store him in the back. The building is a movie prop. It was built for Charo, the only Elvis Presley film in which he does not sing on screen, and a special steeple was fitted to it so it could be blown off during an explosion central to the plot. It stood at Apache Land Movie Ranch, a working Western set constructed at the foot of Superstition Mountain around 1960. Over roughly 45 years, Apacheland hosted about 17 television series and 29 feature films. Wooden sets and desert wind are a poor combination. A fire in May 1969 destroyed most of the ranch. It was rebuilt and filming continued. On Valentine's Day 2004, a second fire, probably electrical, starting in the upper story of the saloon, destroyed 14 of the site's 21 buildings. The same 7 buildings that survived 1969 survived again. This time, nobody rebuilt. The land went to a developer, and the original site was bulldozed. The owners donated the chapel and a barn to the museum down the road. Volunteers took both buildings apart plank by plank and reassembled them on 15 acres about 3.5 miles northeast of Apache Junction. The museum is also where the Peralta stones ended up. Carved sandstone tablets said to map the Peralta mines, one bearing the date 1847 and the names Pedro and Miguel Peralta, with a separate heart-shaped stone that fits into a recess cut into it. They were reportedly found in 1949 by an off-duty police officer beside the highway between Apache Junction and Florence Junction. Father Charles Polzer of the Arizona State Museum examined them and concluded the surfaces had been machined smooth and the carvings made with electric tools. The most disputed treasure map in America sits under glass, 4 miles from where it was supposedly buried, and neither it nor the church around the corner is what it claims to be. Number 7. Fish Creek Hill on the Apache Trail. The road that keeps falling off the mountain. The pavement ends past Tortilla Flat. From there, State Route 88 becomes graded dirt, single lane in places, cut into vertical volcanic canyon walls with sheer unguarded drops to Fish Creek below. It was never meant to be a scenic drive. The Apache Trail was a freight road built in the early 1900s so mule teams could haul material to the Theodore Roosevelt Dam site. The dam was completed in 1911. The road stayed largely unpaved and largely unchanged for more than a century. Then in June 2019, the Woodbury Fire burned almost 124,000 acres of the Tonto National Forest and stripped the vegetation off the slopes above it. In September, a storm dropped roughly 6 inches of rain onto that bare ground. Instead of soaking in, the water ran straight downhill. It tore out culverts, guardrails, and bridge approaches, buried the roadbed in boulders, and left unstable rock faces hanging over what was left. 5 miles of State Route 88 between the Fish Creek Hill Overlook and the Reavis Trailhead closed and stayed closed. The Arizona Department of Transportation refused a quick patch. Their reasoning was simple. Without fixing the underlying drainage, the road would just wash out again. They eventually spent $4 million on an interim project and put the cost of full repairs at $33.7 million. When that 5-mile section reopened, they installed signs of a kind you do not normally see on a numbered state highway. Primitive road, 4-wheel drive and utility task vehicles only. Their own guidance notes that conditions there can change after every rainfall and that the steep, narrow, winding 1.5 miles at Fish Creek Hill runs partly along a cliff edge. It is open again. Whether it stays open is entirely a question of weather. A state highway department put a sign on its own road telling drivers to turn back. That is not a traffic warning. That is an admission about the mountain. Number 6. Silver King in Pinal City. The soldier who found a fortune and then vanished. Around 1870, a soldier named Sullivan was working on the Stoneman Grade, a military road being cut through the hills of Pinal County, when he picked up some unusually heavy black rocks. They were silver sulfide nuggets. He kept the location to himself. Later, he mentioned the find, vaguely and without a location, to a rancher named Charles Mason. Then Sullivan disappeared and was presumed killed by Apache. A vague description was all that remained of the richest silver strike in Arizona. 4 years later, in March 1875, Mason was traveling with 4 other men: Benjamin Regan, William Long, Isaac Copeland, and one man whose name has not survived. On the 21st of March, the party was attacked by Apache and the unnamed man was killed. They buried him near the summit of Stoneman Grade. After the burial, one of the mules wandered off. Copeland went down the slope to bring it back, and while he was down there, he noticed an odd rock outcrop with markings cut into it. Sullivan's markings. The ore assayed as high as $2,000 a ton. That is rich enough to load onto a wagon and ship straight to a smelter with no processing at all. Between 1875 and 1900, the Silver King mine produced an estimated $42 million in silver. The town that handled it was not built at the mine. Pinal City went up on Queen Creek instead, where there was water and a route for the ore wagons. Its post office opened in 1878 and it grew to around 2,000 people. By 1891, it was abandoned. Both sites are still out there, roughly 3 miles north of Superior, reached by dirt tracks off US 60. Some of that access crosses private and claimed ground. What is left is foundations, scattered stone, cemeteries at both sites, and wagon ruts still cut into the dirt. The mine itself is inactive. There is no shade and no sound except wind moving through empty stone walls. The richest silver mine in Arizona was rediscovered because somebody's mule wandered off. The man who found it first got neither the money nor a grave. If you are finding this interesting, you drop a thumbs up. And tell us in the comments which of these places you would actually walk into, the movie prop church or the mine nobody can find. We read all of them. We are halfway now, and everything from here on has a body count. Number 5. Reavis Ranch, the apple orchard in the middle of nowhere. There is a valley deep inside the Superstition wilderness with ponderosa pine, alligator juniper, a creek that runs most of the year, and an orchard of apple trees. It is surrounded on every side by saguaro desert. There is no road to it. Getting in is a multi-hour hike or a horseback ride, and most people who go stay overnight. The man who made it was not a prospector. Elisha Marcus Reavis was born in Beardstown, Illinois in 1827, attended college, and taught school before joining the California gold rush. He tried gold. It did not work. He married in California in 1867 and had a daughter, and in 1869 he went back to Arizona Territory alone, leaving them behind. In 1874 he settled the valley, becoming the first Anglo settler in what is now the Superstition wilderness. He chose it for the one thing this range almost never has. The spring there is described as the only reliable perennial water source in the entire mountain range. He cultivated and irrigated about 15 acres, vegetables, fruit, apples. Everything he grew had to be packed out over rough mountains on muleback and sold in Florence, Mesa, Phoenix, and the mining camps. He did this alone, in the middle of Apache territory, through the Apache Wars, for more than 20 years. He carried a Winchester 1886 repeater and had a reputation as an expert marksman. Anglos called him the Hermit of the Superstitions. Sources record that the Apache called him the White Devil. In the spring of 1896, his body was found near his hut, roughly 12 miles north of the Silver King mine. Coyotes had found him first. The ranch house burned in November 1991. What remains is foundations, fencing, rusted farm machinery, and the orchard. The apple trees are still producing. Hikers still walk in every autumn and pick fruit from them. A man who walked away from his own family is remembered by the only thing in that range that reliably gives something back. Number 4. The Massacre Grounds, the place named for a massacre that may never have happened. It is on the map. Official Arizona maps, a name trail, a parking area. The Massacre Grounds, named for a slaughter that the leading historian of the legend concluded never took place. The story runs like this. During the 1840s, the Peralta family of northern Mexico worked rich gold mines in the Superstitions. In 1848, they made a final expedition to carry ore back to Mexico. Apaches ambushed the party and killed nearly everyone. 1 or 2 Peraltas escaped south. The Apache then buried the gold and concealed the mine entrance. That story is the foundation of everything else in this video. It explains why a rich mine would be hidden, why nobody could return to it, and where Jacob Waltz supposedly got his gold in the first place. The historical record does not support it. Historian Robert Blair concluded that the Peralta Massacre never occurred. Independent research has found no record of a Peralta land grant in Arizona and no wealthy Peralta family mining there in the mid-1800s. The massacre looks like an invention that hardened into fact through sheer repetition. The name went onto the map anyway. The trail today runs roughly 5 to 5.5 miles out and back, starting from the Jacobs Crosscut parking area. The original vehicle trailhead was closed, plowed, and returned to the desert, so the first 0.8 of a mile now walks you to where the trailhead used to be. From there, the route passes through a gap in a fence into the wilderness, climbs saguaro-covered slopes into sheer cliff bands at the base of Superstition Mountain, and ends at Massacre Falls, a thin seasonal waterfall down bare rock that only runs after rain or snowmelt. Here is the detail that stops people cold. Walk to the end of that trail and you are standing on a cliff platform with nowhere further to go. Cliffs above, cliffs below, one way in and one way out. It is exactly the terrain the legend says the miners were cornered against. A story with no evidence behind it produced a place that fits it perfectly. That is either a coincidence or the reason the story worked in the first place. Number 3. Weaver's Needle. The rock people shot each other over. It is a volcanic plug. A column of welded volcanic ash left standing after everything softer around it eroded away. It rises about 1,000 feet out of a bowl of canyons to a summit elevation of 4,555 feet, and it is visible from tens of miles in every direction. It was named for the mountain man Pauline Weaver. To reach the view most people know, you drive 8 miles of dirt road off US 60 to the Peralta Trailhead and climb roughly 1,400 feet over a little over 2 miles to Fremont Saddle. By itself, it is a rock formation. What turned it into the most contested ground in a 160,200-acre wilderness is a single line from the Jacob Waltz deathbed story. The mine, supposedly, lies where the needle's shadow falls. That one detail turned a rock into a target. Hundreds of people, possibly thousands, have searched around its base. By the late 1950s, 2 organized camps had settled there. Ed Piper was a prospector who believed he was within a few hundred feet of the richest deposit on Earth. Celeste Marie Jones held a mining claim on the needle itself and believed the spire contained a gold vein. Their claims adjoined each other. They feuded. On the 11th of November 1958, Robert St. Marie, working for Jones, drew a revolver on Piper on the slopes above his camp. Piper drew and shot him dead. 14 days after that, Laverne Rowley died of gunshot wounds inflicted by Ralph Thomas following an argument near Piper's camp. On the 21st of March 1961, Walter Maury's body was found in Needle Canyon a short distance away. No felony conviction ever came out of any of it. Then in March 1963, Jones hired a registered geologist, Vance Bacon, to work out how a claim on top of a 1,000-foot vertical spire could physically be mined. On the 25th of March, he fell to his death while climbing it, leaving his 20-year-old companion stranded on the rock, shouting for help that nobody could see him to give. Nothing remains of either camp. The formation is still there, the trails are open, and the viewpoints cost nothing. The summit is a technical climb. Summer here is lethal, so autumn through spring is the only sensible window, and there is no water anywhere on the approach. Wind, bare bedrock, silence. A woman held a legal mining claim on the top of a vertical rock spire and paid men to climb it and figure it out. One of them did not come back down. Number 2. Blacktop Mesa. The skull with 2 holes in it. On the 10th of December 1931, an archaeological expedition sponsored by the Arizona Republic found a human skull near the Three Red Hills in the interior of the Superstition wilderness. There were 2 holes through it. The rest of the body did not turn up until the 8th of January 1932 on the slope of Blacktop Mesa, about 3/4 of a mile away. It was found by a party of 5 led by Jeff Adams, which included a rancher named Tex Barkley. Barkley had already met the dead man. 6 months earlier, Adolph Ruth, a veterinarian and amateur treasure hunter from Washington, D.C., had turned up at Barkley's Quarter Circle U Ranch carrying what he believed were authentic Peralta maps. Barkley told him not to go. He pointed out Ruth's age and the fact that it was June in the Sonoran Desert. Ruth was not interested. When Barkley asked him to wait a few days while he went to Phoenix on business, Ruth got impatient and persuaded two of Barkley's ranch hands, Leroy Purnell and Jack Keenan, to pack him into the mountains instead. They set his camp at Willow Spring in West Boulder Canyon on the 13th of June, 1931. He wrote to his family the next day, saying he was just north and west of Weaver's Needle. That is the last thing anybody heard from him. The terrain out there is black basalt-capped mesa above dry canyon washes. Loose dark rock, a few Palo Verde, no shade, no water. Ground temperatures on that dark basalt have been estimated near 180 degrees Fahrenheit. It is hours of hiking from the nearest trailhead, and there is no vehicle access of any kind. The skull was examined by Alish Hrdlicka, the most eminent physical anthropologist in the country. He identified it as Ruth's. He also concluded that the two holes were bullet wounds, a small entry and a larger exit, consistent with a high-powered weapon fired at close range. The Maricopa County coroner ruled the death natural causes. Ruth's maps were not among his effects. Newspapers in the depths of the Depression found the whole thing irresistible, and the story went national. Before Adolph Ruth, the Lost Dutchman was an Arizona legend. After him, it was an American one. Every treasure hunter who has walked into those mountains in the 90-odd years since has walked in partly because of him. There is nothing marked out there today. No plaque, no memorial. The mesa is unchanged and reachable only on foot by experienced hikers, and June still kills people in the same way it probably killed him. His story is on display in a museum in Apache Junction, about as far from the ground as you can get. The Smithsonian's own anthropologist said the man had been shot through the head with a large caliber weapon. A county coroner wrote down natural causes and closed the file. Nobody has ever reopened it. Number 1. Tortilla Mountain, 3 years, half a mile. A pocked 3-mile dirt track climbs to the Tortilla trailhead with drop-offs steep enough that four-wheel drive is effectively required to get up it. Past that, everything is on foot. The ground goes steep almost immediately. Broken cliff bands stacked above brush-choked slopes and nothing to navigate by. No landmarks, every ridge looks like the ridge behind it, and every gully looks like the one you just crossed. There is no trail noise out here and no water. Just wind moving through brush and the sound of your own boots on loose rock. This is a 4,892-foot mountain in the southern Superstitions, roughly 60 miles east of Phoenix. And for 3 years, a search team came here almost every single weekend. Jesse Kappen was 35. He worked the night shift as a bellhop at a Sheraton in downtown Denver and had reportedly never missed a day in 11 years. He was not a prospector. He had no equipment, no claim, no partners. What he had was a library. After he disappeared, his family found more than 100 books and maps about the Lost Dutchman in his apartment. He had barely mentioned any of it to them. He had already been to the Superstitions at least twice, and his family only learned about one of those trips after he was gone. In late 2009, he committed properly. He saved money and vacation time for 2 years. He traded his car for a Jeep. He booked a month off work and stored supplies in an Apache Junction motel room so he could resupply on weekends. The plan was 3 days in, 2 days out. He checked out of that motel on the 2nd of December 2009. He went in for the 3rd time the following day. The most likely reconstruction is straightforward and awful. A storm was moving in on the evening of the 4th. Heading back toward camp, he took the wrong side of Tortilla Mountain, ran into cliffs he could not downclimb, and fell. His camp and his Jeep were found. Search and rescue with dogs went in on the 23rd of December 2009 and found nothing. The official search ended. His mother asked the volunteers from Superstition Search and Rescue not to stop. They did not. They went back into those mountains almost every weekend for nearly 3 years. On the 24th of November 2012, searchers found a day pack at the foot of a cliff. Inside it were GPS equipment, a camera, and Jesse Cappen's driver's license. Someone spotted a boot on steeper ground above it. His skeletal remains were recovered from a crevice roughly 30 to 35 feet up a sheer cliff face, which is exactly why 3 years of people had walked underneath him without seeing anything. He was about half a mile from where his own Jeep and tent had been found 3 years earlier. There is nothing marked on that mountain now. No memorial, no sign. The trailhead is open, the terrain is unchanged, and Superstition search and rescue is still out there, still running searches, because people still go in. He disappeared in early December. The season everyone assumes is the safe one. A man spent 10 years reading about a mine that has never been found in a range where geologists have questioned whether the gold was ever there at all. He walked in on a Thursday. It took a volunteer team, a mother's request, and 3 years of weekends to bring him back out. The Superstitions are 160,200 acres that have never given up the thing everyone believes is inside them. For me, it is Reavis Ranch, a pine forest and an apple orchard in the middle of a desert that kills people, planted by a man who wanted nothing from anybody and got exactly that. Which of these surprised you most, and which one did we miss? If forgotten places are what you are here for, subscribe.